All right, guys, welcome back to Sub 2 Investor. My name is Hans, and in this episode, I will be breaking down in detail the numbers on my fifth subject to deal, which I hold to this day. You're going to see the grand picture of how these numbers are working out for me and how this deal is cash flowing me nearly $500 a month. I stand to make $70,000, but I could make as much as $140,000 on a deal, which, mind you, had zero equity. The seller was behind on payments. Her tenant was not paying, and we inherited that tenant. We didn't do any work to the property, and the deal is performing. What's cool is that you get to see an inside picture of how these deals actually work in real life. So stay tuned to find out just how amazing this deal is and how you can replicate it for yourself. Now, this is part of my real Sub 2 deal breakdown series where I am walking through deal by deal creative finance deals that's subject to and seller finance deals that I've closed, and showing you the ins and outs, the details, the nitty gritty of how I executed these transactions so that you, the newer investor or the newer to creative finance investor, can see, I guess, the mistakes and the successes I've had, and you can learn from me, and I wish you the best on your journey. So in this particular deal, if you haven't seen the previous episode, you can check that out to see where we got this lead from, and in fact, it's a lead source that very few people know about. You can go back to that video and learn about that, and also I showed you photos of the property so that you can see the condition and the shape of this particular property, which we rented out for a time, but then ultimately sold on seller financing. And it was quite impressive to see that the property actually needed quite a bit of updating, and yet we were able to get away without rehabbing. This is one deal that I really like. I love deals that I don't have to do any rehab to them and where I can find a buyer very quickly and where I can actually be cash positive on the front end and make a little money when I close with my tenant buyer or my buyer. So enough chit chat, let's get down to the numbers. This property had an ARV probably of about $110,000. Not a fantastic neighborhood, if you recall. Maybe a C+ neighborhood. It's honestly the lowest rung in terms of neighborhoods in which I would buy to do this business model in. But this was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house and very amenable for a family. So we felt relatively confident that we could find a buyer. Turns out that our tenant ended up being our buyer. The house was probably worth $110,000, and that's with some sweat equity and some rehab, honestly, that it needed. The loan balance was $70,000, but of course, she was behind on payments, and so she actually owed $90,000 in total. She had $20,000 worth of late payments, which was a problem for us because if the house is worth $110,000 and she has a collective debt of $90,000, well, then there's no profit in here for us. If we go to buy it, let's just say for 90 grand, pay off all our debt, and then we go and sell it for 110, well, we sell on the market, we are going to pay a realtor and a buyer's agent and closing costs, which, on average might be 6, 7, 8%, somewhere like that of the sales price. Maybe we can irk out $10,000 if there's zero seller concessions, but what if the sewer lateral line needed to be replaced? What if the roof needed to be replaced? Then we also have holding costs and closing costs. So literally, we would have zero profit on this deal, possibly negative. So not a great flip property. As a rental, it potentially could work, but you would have to put a lot of money into it up front to ensure that you're not going to have any maintenance issues and major repairs that you're going to have to make in the first 5 years, which I guarantee you there will be repairs made in the coming years, okay? But I'm not making them. our buyer will be. So $90,000, this $20,000, what we did was we asked the seller if she'd be willing to apply for a loan modification or mortgage assistance, technically is what it's called. And then the lender gives the borrower options. You know, you can do a loan modification, you can do a partial claim, payment plan. Really the best case scenario in this situation was a partial claim. A partial claim is where the bank or the lender takes all of the late payments, all of the accrued interest and principal that wasn't paid, and then there's going to be some escrow that wasn't paid and fees, lawyer fees, whatever. And they're going to take that amount and they're just going to create a second lien or a second mortgage or a second deed of trust. It's a second lien. It's a lien that comes after this one. Here's the primary lien. The primary lien against the house is this first mortgage of $70,000, but then they're going to take $20,000, the late payments, and create another lien that goes after this lien that gets recorded with the county, so you can go look it up. And the cool thing about this is that her loan was a 3% interest loan. It's a fantastic interest rate, right? Somebody would die to have that kind of interest rate today. But when you do a partial claim, these are actually at 0%. At least they always have been at 0 whenever I've done them. So we have $20,000 at 0% and $70,000 at 3%. Inflation is at 3%. So literally our debt is paying for itself. Her monthly payment was $567 a month, which just seems crazy low. And when we bought the property subject to and closed, we paid about $1,500 in closing costs, which is a little bit more than we typically pay. We did zero rehab to it. Again, $0.00 worth of work to the property, and cash to seller, which we frequently give cash to the seller. We gave them $0 as well because she had moved out of state. She was behind on payments. So she was on fixed income, Social Security, and just didn't have extra money to cover the mortgage on this house, and her tenant wasn't paying it. So she just wanted this thing gone and not a problem that was going to come back and plague her. So she was okay taking $0. I think we actually did send her a bonus check around the holidays after we closed it of like $500 or something like that for the effort of doing the loan modification, which took some of her time. And so that was a nice thank you to her. But we did take a risk not knowing exactly what was going to happen after we closed on it. And we were going to have to deal with this tenant who was not paying. And as you recall from the previous video, we approached that tenant and we actually put him on a lease and an option to buy, basically saying, we'll give you a trial period. If you're able to pay the rent for X amount of months on time, then we will consider selling to you on seller financing, more specifically on a contract for deed, which is what we did. He actually ended up being a great payer, and his mom actually co-signed with him on this deal, which was a very sweet thing. I talked with her and she was super proud that he was able to own a house. We felt very good and very solid, especially with having a co-signer, but we sold it now. The house needed a little bit of work, so we gave him a little bit of a deal on the house. So we sold it for $105,000. We only received a down payment of $5,000 because, this, like I said, is more of a rental area and it can be difficult to collect a larger down payment in a C-class type area. Not that it's not possible, but that's what we negotiated with this individual. So a little bit less than we typically collect on a down payment, but there it is. So his unpaid balance, his UPB, stands at $100,000 and the interest rate 8.7%, which compared to the 3 creates a massive spread of more than 5 points. His unpaid balance versus our unpaid balance of $90,000. This is a very small spread of only $10,000 between these numbers, but between this number, you'll see that our cash flow, because his monthly payment is $1,050 a month, and that is his PITI. So if you take a look at the profit in total, on the front end of this deal, we were only in it $1,500 and our time and energy, but monetarily speaking, we're only in it for $1,500, but we collected $5,000 on the down payment. So up front, we actually made $3,500, which, to put this in perspective, you would not have been able to wholesale this deal to anyone. I'm pretty sure nobody would have bought this deal with such a little equity position. This ARV of 110 was debatable. Somebody could have easily come in and argued for $100,000 of the ARV and said, I can't pay $90,000 for a $100,000 property that needs $20,000 of work. So there's no way you're wholesaling this deal if you get it under contract. Yet, we made $3,500, which is like a small, modest wholesale fee on this deal with no equity up front. That's cash in our bank account. Cash flow, the difference between his monthly payment and our monthly payment, approximately $400 and I think it was $83 a month, which if you multiply that by 12, $5,796,000. That's a year. And this is important for calculating the grand profit that you stand to make on the deal. And then the back end payment, we have front end cash flow, back end, that was $10,000. Again, the difference between his unpaid balance and our unpaid balance. His unpaid balance of $100,000 and our unpaid balance of $90,000. This will change in time because we have an amortization schedule with our own principal pay down, and he's got an amortization schedule. Both amortize over 30 years, but ours started earlier, his is starting later. So this number will fluctuate, and as time goes on, it will go down. He takes it to term, to 30-year term, but that's where we're starting from. You know, the average seller finance buyer is going to be in a property for roughly 10 years. Could be a little bit less, could be a little bit more, but that's a good ballpark average. So when we run profit analyses, we're looking at the 10-year total profit. So what is the 10-year total profit with our cash flow here for 10 years, our front end, and then our back end? It's a little bit of a complicated algorithm, but it is roughly $70,000. And just to put this into perspective, what work did I have to do to earn this potential $70,000? Of which I've already earned this much. We've already earned a year of cash flow, actually close to 2 years of cash flow on this particular deal. So I've already earned close to $14,000, maybe $15,000 on this deal already, but $70,000, what more work do I need to do to get to that $70,000? Well, if I was a landlord, I'd have to, fill vacancies, do make-ready repairs because tenants are destroying my property or not taking care of it, replace heating and cooling systems, roofs, foundations, sub pumps, sewer lateral lines, fire my contractors because they, can't get up and get to work and do their job the right way. I have to do all that work to earn money on a rental property, or if it's a short-term rental. I understand these are all viable business models, but I just want to put this into perspective that to earn this additional amount of money, I don't have to do anything. I literally collect the payments and then at the end of the year, issue a year-end statement like a 1098. And there might be some insurance things I need to deal with, but it's like literally 1% of what I'd have to do if I were a landlord on this particular deal. If the buyer takes this deal and they may never qualify for a loan or care to qualify for a loan, they might be content with this monthly payment amount, and they may never sell the house because this is where their family is. They could be there for 30 years. And as rents go up, as inflation continues, and now the rents could be like $1,300, from his perspective, why try to refinance if rates go down? And why not just pay this amount and make things easy? If he does that over 30 years, the total profit after 30 years is $140,000, all on a deal that literally I couldn't do anything else with. Again, I go back to this question, how many of these deals do you need, personally you, to establish enough cash flow? So how many 483 a month deals do you need to escape your 9 to 5? Okay. And how much equity and future payments do you need to pad your retirement for your future, for your family? How many of these $70,000 do you need until you have a net $1 million or multi-million-dollar net worth? Moreover, we did an amazing service to the seller in catching up her payments and making her payments on time and taking this property, this headache property, off of her mind and her heart, and her, she could get on with her life. And we gave this tenant, right, who wasn't doing so good, an amazing opportunity to become a homeowner and have the pride of homeownership. And I have to say, they're crushing it. So I feel good about my business and how I'm serving people and being able to be a actually helpful middleman So if you like this content, if you find this inspirational or educational, if you learned anything from it, please do me a huge favor, like and subscribe. This is a new channel. I'm trying to provide as much really helpful content to you guys. I know good content can be difficult to find, so I'm doing the best that I can to just put what I know out there. Please subscribe, like, and if you have any comments, I'd like to know what questions you have. I plan to do some question and answers shortly, so please leave your comments and your questions. I can address those in future videos. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me on this one. On to the next deal. I will see you next time. Stay creative. Peace.